All right, I am broadcasting live. I got my coffee here. I got a guy on whose name is on my book as much as I am, and we're just gonna have a quick conversation here. So let's jump straight into it with Dr. Christopher West. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great.
Long and short of it is short runway. You've been my doctor for over a decade now, and you've gotten a lot older looking since then. Somebody recommended you to me, and man, I've been flat out recommending you to a ton of people since then. Where are you from, man? Let's just really quick. Let me just a short dive into who you are. Where are you from?
Sure. I grew up in Florida. Went to University of Florida, go Gators. Then I did grad school in Chicago, Deerfield. I got a degree, master's in bioethics. Went to med school in Kansas City, residency in Iowa, and then eventually ended up in Denver by choice. And about 3 or 4 years ago, went back and got a board certification in functional medicine.
Wow. Man, that's a lot of different places, man. Florida, Illinois, Kansas, Denver. Who's your football team?
Broncos.
Right on.
Easily.
Great answer. And now you set up shop in Parker, Colorado, right?
That is correct. We have a family practice, 5 providers, 25 staff, and we are busy and busting out at the seams.
No doubt, man. I called for a physical, and man, they put me out to December. I was like, December? What? What's up with that?
Yeah, you must have not dropped your name. Otherwise, you'd have gotten you in earlier, right?
No, I dropped my name, and they took me from October to December. I think what it is. They said, man, you don't want none of you. So let's get straight. I want to get to a point here, and this conversation is I want to do this really quick, just around the whole notion of, and this conversation being geared towards men. I want to get kind of to the notion of what is stress doing to me, doing to us as men. First of all, we live in a stressful culture, kind of a stressful climate. And so I don't know if there's really too many, if any, people that experience no stress in their life. It's kind of a nature of the beast here in America. Are there different types of stress?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, stress ain't bad. It's just prolonged stress. We're meant to, have moments of stress, but then we're also meant to have moments of downtime. So I don't want to, throw stress under the bus. I mean, that's when you weightlift, that's a stressful event, but then you get good results out of it. But if you're weightlifting 3 times a day, guess what? It's going to catch up to you. So I like to tell my patients there's 3 types of stress. There's emotional stress. That's the one that everyone knows. Grandma's dying. I hate my job. That's the typical can't pay my bills. That's the emotional stress. Then there's 2 that people don't think about. One is physical stress. I just alluded to that with the weightlifting. Physical stress can also be, the marathon runner who just overtrains. It can be chronic pain. It could also be just like overtraining, like the marathon runner. Then the last one is time stress, and I think that's what gets a lot of us. We like what we're doing, we just do too much of it. The soccer mom, traveling, working 14 hours a day, and then the big one is wrong hours, like your second shifts and overnights and getting up too early. Don't quote me on this, but because it's been a while, but I believe people who work a second shift, the get home around 9 p.m. kind of thing, 3 a.m. thing, I think they take about 7 years off their life.
Wow.
They may love their job, but it's just a form of stress.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of guys that just grind it. Wow, man, that's so stress is not bad. Too much of it and no, maybe. So it sounds like maybe stress is not bad, but stress with no rest is maybe bad.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. I tell people all the time there's 3 approaches to stress. The first one is to just say no. That's the classic one you're going to hear, but sometimes you just can't say no. You know, things happen. The second one is to manage it, and that's the one where the rest comes into play. I tell people, you know, have a cigarette break without the cigarette. Take what I call mini vacations, MINI. And a mini vacation could be, you know, a half a day. The great thing about Colorado is you can be in the mountains in an hour and you feel like you're in a different world, and then, you know, be back the next day. And then the third is to change your attitude or your perspective. I tell people, hey, what would happen if your neighbors, and it's a bad example, but it proves the point, but what would happen if your neighbor's kid was diagnosed with cancer? You immediately would change your perspective, and things that you thought were important wouldn't be important anymore. And you can change your perspective through various things, finding God, counseling, kind of like forcing a midlife crisis without the actual crisis, just, you know, reevaluating where you are in life. These are simple ways to, you know, change your perspective, and therefore things that normally would stress you out don't.
Wow. And so I have this theory, if you will, and you've never called me out on it. You had taken my class, and so you've heard kind of the meat of it. But I have this theory that I think a lot of times when we get into the medication aspect of life in terms of trying to escape, whether it be through a substance or a habit or something like that, I think today, I think some of it, if not maybe a lot of it, is trying to, if you will, medicate that heightened levels of stress without the rest and that sort of thing. And so to that point, does stress have a chemical compound in our body, a component rather?
Yeah, so the hormone that everyone goes to, and it's true, it's cortisol. That's your stress hormone. And the example I use when cortisol is good is you have a family event. You're leaving for Disney, and the plane is at 9 a.m. and every kid is up at 5 a.m. saying, let's go. And everyone's happy and excited. That's cortisol when it's good. Cortisol when it's bad would be you get a phone call at midnight and it's a wrong number. You're fine. Nothing bad happened, but then you just lay in bed and stare at the ceiling and you can't go to sleep. And you're just, you know, twiddling your thumbs going, what's going on? That's cortisol when it's bad. And then cortisol has just crazy effects on the body. The first one is belly fat. Estrogen tends to cause like saddlebags, thick legs, those kind of things. But cortisol likes to cause the belly fat. The stereotype that I like to point out, and it is a stereotype, but is policemen. Policemen are always on. Even if they're not on their, you know, getting paid, they're, you know, looking behind their back. They got something to worry about or whatever. So they tend to get that belly fat. And to allude to your drug question, one of the perfect substitutes for cortisol is a little bit of caffeine and sugar, so quick sugar. So that's why the donut coffee thing really fits, because it's actually replacing the cortisol that they're looking for. And of course, then it just promotes the weight gain. The other big thing as it relates to men is cortisol basically robs the resource that is used to make testosterone and the other sex hormones. I like to allude to it's nature's way of saying if you're running from bears and tigers all the time, now's not the time to try to procreate. Now's not the time to have babies. So you have one hormone called pregnenolone, and that's like your mother hormone, and it can go down and make cortisol, or it can go down the pathway to make testosterone. Well, it can't go down both pathways all the time. It's got to choose, and eventually it just goes down the cortisol pathway, leaving little to make testosterone. And I'll have men come in all the time and then be like, I want my testosterone. I got low T. And I'll be like, dude, you just need to stop stressing and eat better. And guess what? Your testosterone would come back naturally. You're just robbing your body of its resource to make the testosterone.
Okay, so perfect segue. I mean, that to me, if I'm guy coming in saying that to you, well, I mean, how do I lower that stress?
Yeah, that goes back to that, the 3 approaches: saying no, having a better perspective. And one of the things that really helped me on the perspective is, are you getting paid for what it's worth? And my wife, really, who's a counselor, of course, she really helped me on that. And what was happening was I was frustrated going to work, and she goes, you don't think you get paid for what it's worth? Well, I didn't go to work and then, get a raise or whatever. What I did was I reevaluated, what is my form of payment? And for me, it was freedom, being my own boss, prestige of being a doctor, being able to help others. Those kind of things are forms of payment as well that just aren't monetary. And when I put that in perspective, it really helped me. And I was like, okay, I may not, have extra cash in the bank that I think it's worth, but I am getting paid in other ways. And then that really helped me on my perspective as it related to work. And so that's just an example of changing your perspective. And then the final is the managing part. And that's the one that I really have to focus on, because, there's always someone who needs something. I work with needy people all day, basically. And so I have to basically escape throughout the day and go hide. Otherwise, someone's going to find me. And I'll do that for, 30 seconds to 5 minutes. And it really helps. Go outside, take a breather. Those are really easy ways. The other one that I really want to stress is exercise. We make exercise in America a chore, and we put it on our to-do list. And if we don't do it, we get stressed out, and we stress out about doing it. And we need to change our perspective on what stress is like. Stress should be an enjoyable, or exercise should be an enjoyable event. I tell people exercise should be like a walk in the park. That's why I really like competitive sports, playing with a buddy, like racquetball and tennis and that type of thing, because you're not thinking of it as a chore. You're just having fun. And after an hour, all of a sudden you've exercised an hour and gotten everything done, and you don't realize it. And men and women both, they kind of warp their view of exercise, and it just raises their cortisol levels.
Wow. You actually told me that on a physical a couple of years ago, and that kind of flipped my script a little bit. And for me specifically, even when I do, like, whether I go do some stairs down in Castle Rock, or whether I go run or something like that, for me, incorporating music into that event, into that exercise, that has changed it for me, because I feel like I'm able to mentally kind of check out and mentally kind of connect, and to your point, kind of refocus and reevaluate even during the event where it's not a chore. Like, I actually get to get away. Yesterday morning, I was at sunrise down during the steps in Castle Rock, but I had the music, and it was just beautiful. And so for me, I mean, that has kind of helped. But yeah, you pointed that out to me a couple of years ago when I lost 55 pounds and how I was doing it and that sort of stuff. And so that's pretty huge. I don't want to lose the fact or lose the point of when you say stress affecting a guy's testosterone, which obviously, that testosterone has a domino effect in terms of his physical health, his sexual health, and all these other things. And it just becomes something super critical. And I think that could also lead to, specifically in kind of my Superman, my alter ego in terms of helping guys manage their sexuality. And so, I mean, I think the connection of those dots is very important in terms of our lifestyle and what we create that we then have to medicate.
Right. And as you talk about, there's various forms of self-medicating, and all of it is to, try to keep us going. And if we would just recognize where we're at and why we're self-medicating, oftentimes that defeats it. and we can just say, oh, I need to back down a little bit, and then we're not looking for that self-medication as much.
And so if I could flip the page just really quick, you also happen to have 2 teenagers. And so does stress affect, and again, I want to keep it specifically guys, does stress also affect teen boys adversely today?
It does. However, the whole hormone thing, the testosterone and all that, you have a really good reserve when you're born or when you become a teenager. And so you hear grandma, or you hear people say all the time, it's good to have kids when you're a kid because you can handle it, and that goes with that whole reserve you have. Usually you hit rock bottom, you start hitting that low T stuff in your late 30s, early 40s, and a lot of people will be like, oh, he's just going through a midlife crisis. And in reality, he has low T, or what we call adrenal fatigue, where his cortisol just poops out and he has none left and he can't give anymore, and he crashes and burns. As it relates to teenage boys, it probably gets more into, and it's not so much a low T thing. They're already sky high on their testosterone, so they usually have enough buffer, so to speak, to handle the onslaught. Now they manifest more, I would say, on the psychiatric counseling side, with how to handle it, more dealing with what my wife deals with in terms of, I just read this week how the #1 killer is now suicide. And it surpassed, car wrecks and stuff. And it's just super sad that that's the case. And, our county here is just high in teenage suicide rate. And that's why we have a counseling center and we're reaching out. And it's just very tragic. And the bullying and social media. And that's a whole nother lecture on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this has been something that, I'm planning on catching up with you all later about some other, but this has been a passion of mine in terms of lately. I think the stress specifically that we're experiencing as adults and even as parents are, it's pain. And so that pain is often either dealt with, medicated, or transferred. And I think some of it, we're transferring it to our kids, especially out here in the suburbs, because there's no reason why where we live, there should be a teen suicide problem other than, they're dealing with things that and levels of stress and expectations that maybe we haven't equipped them with. And so,
right. And that's one of my theories is we don't teach them how to fail or how to experience bad things. We try to coddle them and shelter them. And then when they're 16 and all of a sudden run into something bad, they don't know how to handle that. And then going back to, if you're a 40-year-old male trying to get that perfect house, that perfect boat and everything, and you're working 40, 50 hours a week, and well, guess what? You're not hanging out with your kids. And so it's all related.
Yeah. I do think it is a big, huge ball of wax, man. So anyhow, but we'll, like I said, we'll talk. I got some stuff in the works. I'm wringing my hands. I got some stuff in the works here. And as you mentioned before, and your wife Megan has actually been on these Uplift webinars in the past, and so she's a great counselor. There's a whole nother side to Parker Family Care that's counseling with care, and I'll put all that info in the follow-up email to this video and in the description of the YouTube link that I'll create. But you all do great work. You all have become friends. Like I said, there's nothing more I can say other than you've been my doctor for a long time. You have gotten a whole lot more gray since then.
Yes, I have.
But so have I. Anyhow, man, like I said, I just appreciate you. This is a quick conversation. Hopefully we'll be able to come back to this at another point. I know this is going to bring up all kinds of questions, and parents have questions and that sort of stuff. And I think our next generation, they're begging for help, man. And so I'm looking forward to maybe helping them for sure. So, man, I appreciate you. you're not doing my physical today, but I'm assuming you got some patients to get to here pretty shortly. Your office opens at what, 7?
Yep, 7 to 6.
And in my phone, man, it's so easy to remember 303-805-CARE. And if you want a physical, you're gonna have to wait a little bit to get this guy. But you have several other providers in there. You guys, I mean, you're so busy because you do great work.
Thanks.
And so I appreciate you all. And man, we will absolutely be in touch. Tell the fam I said what's up. And
I will.
And we will talk to you later,
you,
man. If I don't see you before then, I'll see you in December. Go easy on me, man.
All right, we'll do.
All right, we'll see you.
Take care.